Ivan Mona Malik, club Mdabranta Sitot Odrana Autoreta it Emercha. مخليتها شريلان أو خرزة خدش درنش اتفعلا اتلن أرخ من دوشان بريش خمنة إيوة من إسرائيل واتلن خدنا بتاية من هيوستن تكساس وأخيتها من واشنطن دي سي ات إسرائيل لمسيلان أو دخلة وات من واشنطن دي سي اتلن أخشي قالة بتايلة إنا اتلن تري أرخ منن بتايخ أموخن هرمشا من A&B سات وبتايخ بعد خوا خرزة سبب اتلن خمط آنو تقاتوخن رابع أنا نقيتلا قا أمتن آتوريتا خرزة بعزل قامة بإنجلس بإتلن أرخن خراية وهدي بتعزخ خرزة بإنجلس عيوتن باسيمة. Good evening, everyone. We are coming to you live via A&B Sat in San Jose. My name is Mona Malik, and I am the Vice President of the Assyrian Aid Society of America. The intent of this special program is to bring you, our viewers, up to date on the joint effort of a number of organizations on behalf of all Assyrians and other Iraqi and Assyrian Christians facing persecution in Iraq and Syria. Assyrian Aid Society of America, in coordination in a coordinated effort with Philos Project, Iraqi Christian Relief Council, and the American Mesopotamian Organization are calling on Secretary of State John Kerry and the State Department to fully and unequivocally recognize the so-called Islamic State's unmistakable campaign of genocide against the Assyrians and other Iraqi and Syrian Christians in that region. At the request of the Philos Project, we are fortunate to have the law firm of Andrews Kurt from Houston, Texas on our team. They have been instrumental in gathering scholarly data and testimony to clearly establish that ISIS's pattern of abuse, torture, and murder against Assyrian Christians in Iraq and Syria meets all the criteria for genocide as laid out by the United Nations. The letter was sent yesterday to Secretary Kerry and other State Department officials, as well as press releases from all the participants. And I just want to say that as a side note, the letter is a significant part of a large campaign that will culminate into a press conference tomorrow by the Knights of Columbus at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. And we'll touch upon that a little bit tonight because we have with us Juliana Temruzi of ICRC, who just arrived in D.C. to be able to participate on a panel at the press conference tomorrow. So tonight we're very fortunate, we're very grateful to have two guests who were involved in this very honorable endeavor. And in this program we plan to discuss the significance of the letter to Secretary Kerry, how we came together as a group, as a joint effort, and how you as a viewer can spread the word and impose pressure on our elected officials in DC for support. So I'd like to welcome our two guests. Our first guest, Eric Osborne. He's a litigation associate at Andrews Kurt Law Firm in Houston, Texas. And we also have Juliana Temruzi. And as I said before, we only have her photo up, and we'll listen to her voice. Juliana Temruzi is the founder and president of Iraqi Christian Relief Council, and she is also a fellow at Philos Project. So I'd like to welcome both of you, Eric and Juliana, and let's start with you, Eric. Eric, would you please give us a brief introduction about yourself and your organization, and what this campaign means to you?
So I'll start with my organization, and thank you so much, first of all, let me say, for having me on this evening. It really means the world to me to have the opportunity to work with all of you and to have the chance to help come today and help spread the word and answer any questions people might have. The law firm I work for is Andrews Kurt LLP. It's been around since 1902. We're the second oldest law firm in Houston, Texas. We have offices throughout the world, in fact, several in Texas. We have New York and DC. As well as several offices in foreign countries. We have about 400 lawyers all told who work for our law firm in various places. I myself, I originally come from Tennessee, and after college went to seminary at Princeton Seminary. My background is in the Presbyterian Protestant Church, and after seminary, I then went to law school at Stanford Law School, and I've always had a great interest in what I call the church's work in the larger world. And so ever since graduating law school, I've tried to maintain a robust pro bono practice, helping churches and other faith-based groups with issues that might arise. This is my first foray. Other than several years ago, I actually helped a Christian pastor in China who was slated for execution. I worked with some people to try to get that man freed, but that was 9 years ago now. So this is my first foray in a while into the international realm and international law. Most of my work when it comes to helping churches tends to be United States domestic work. So First Amendment cases, various things like that.
Great. Juliana, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization?
Absolutely. Shalom aleichem. Rabba Baghdad qad amilati khubenten. I'm gonna. If you want to, I can speak in both languages. It's up to you. I can go back and forth. But out of respect for Eric, I'm going to begin with speaking in English. It's an honor to be with all of you. Juliana Taimarazi, I'm the founder and the president of the Iraqi Christian Relief Council, an organization which I founded it 8.5 years ago. And our mission is to travel throughout the globe and minister in different churches to raise awareness and educate Americans and others about the plight of our people, and raise funds and send them to the region for their basic necessities. سيتدي إلى متفت أدران الشيخايت عراق قد أها شيت سالن شيت تريد بشوا ومن ديدان أختبيخ برخشة من جو أمرانو وجو كنيسة تويداي همزوم خبازت أهولت ملت ديان جو أترد أبهاتن وجامو يخزوزو شادور خيارتا لا جو أترد أبهاتن لا شيت تريد بخمسة أختن مبدي خيارات جو لبنان جوردن وسوريا هذا. I also work for Philos Project, an organization that promotes Christian engagement with the matters of the Middle East. It's a fairly new organization, but very well positioned, very powerful, spearheaded by Robert Nicholson, who unfortunately is unable to be with us today. He is actually overseas. أنا بالخانم قخا سيتاب شمت Philos Project قد إذا نيويورك خا سيتلا قد مدوي لقى أما أمريكاي بريشايت قا إيفانجيلاي كريستيانة أمريكا موين أهولت قبومنا جو مدن 5 آية و دا أرخا مدوينا مانينا أتورايو مانينا كريستيانة خينة جو أترد جو مدن 5 آية وأديا أو شتسانة دبرانة ده سيتا روبرت نيكولسون ليلة أمان سبب إلى ليلة لخا جو أترد أمريكا ولمسي لان همزم أخمنه.
Okay, Basimta Juliana, thank you for that and also for discussing a little bit about Philos Project. I'd like to just add briefly to give a little background on how Assyrian Aid became involved in this project that we're discussing tonight. It all started with a recent trip that we took to Washington, D.C., and it was at the invitation of the State Department to participate in a briefing regarding the protection of religious, cultural heritage in Iraq and Syria. So Ashur Yusuf, the president of Assyrian Aid Society of America, and I we went early February, and we were there for 3 days with a packed schedule of meetings. I mean, we can spend a whole segment on just the details of all those meetings, but for the sake of time, I just want to say that the two most important ones were the State Department meetings and the meetings with Knights of Columbus. They were important because those meetings instilled a trust that Assyrian Aid Society can be a valuable asset, a valuable source of information regarding our Assyrian community, both in diaspora and in our homeland. So soon after we returned from DC, we were contacted to help with data and testimony gathering that was needed for the press conference tomorrow that we mentioned is going to take place. So we had a very short window to make this happen, but with the help of Assyrian Aid Society of Iraq and their team of experts, we were able to gather the evidence they requested. So while we were working on that, Juliana and Robert from ICRC and from Philos Project asked us for our support in the letter writing campaign to Secretary Kerry. And everything seemed to fall in place, and we were all working for the same cause, and that we were part of this larger campaign, and we were happy to contribute. And that's how all of us came together to make this happen. So Eric, I would like to go to you if you can explain a little bit the legal dimension of this document. What is genocide exactly as it pertains to the UN Article 2 of the Genocide Convention, which is on page 22 of the letter to Secretary Kerry? I just want to mention to our audience that we have posted this letter on all our websites, on AssyrianAid.com, on ICRC's Iraqi Christian Relief Council's website, the Philos Project. This letter is now public for everybody to see. But just for your information, we will post the page 22 that I'm referring to. So Eric, if you can explain the legal dimension in the United Nations part of it.
Yes, no, thank you for that. So on December 9th, 1948, the United Nations passed the Convention Against Genocide. And ever since that point, it's been recognized as a crime against international law. And in that convention, the act of genocide is defined as committing with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. And it gives various actions that, if those actions are done with that intent to destroy a racial, ethnical, religious, or national group, then we have a genocide. The particular conduct that the convention includes are killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, or forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. So that's how genocide is defined under the Act. One of the key things that bears emphasis is this whole issue of committing with intent. What that means is that, and let me step back just for the help of your viewers. In many instances in law, one of the key questions is something that we call mens rea, which means what is your mental intent when you do something? If I were to, for example, commit a murder with the intention of killing somebody, then I would have an intent of killing. Whereas if I drive recklessly and kill somebody, that is a lesser crime of manslaughter because I did not have the intent. And so the specific actions that take place, while they're important, horrible actions, horrible things that people do to people don't necessarily rise to the level of genocide unless they are done with the intent of destroying in whole or in part a racial, national, ethnical, or religious group. And a large part of what our letter is trying to get at is that question of intent, because no one disputes the general facts about the terrible things that ISIS is doing in Iraq. Where the dispute lies, to the best of my knowledge, is what is their actual intent behind what they're doing.
Okay, so keeping that in mind, Juliana, can you explain to our viewers why is it crucial and to declare genocide? The genocide is made, that the actions, the atrocities that ISIS are committing are in fact a genocide?
Well, there's several reasons. One that is most prominent for me is it is really a game changer. It is going to be a conversation changer. I think first and foremost, it's going to, on an immediate basis, it's going to put the spotlight on the Assyrians and other Iraqi and Syrian Christians. And God willing, the aid will start flowing because there's not, I mean, we know about 1.3 million Assyrians are in need in that region. So, and the aid that is being delivered is truly just scratching the surface. So, if this is declared as a genocide, then the floodgates, God willing, will open from an aid perspective from across the world. And as we know, Europe has called this a genocide, and hopefully America, who the world always looks up to and looks at, when they declare it, that's going to promote a lot of more NGOs to partake in this. From a political standpoint, I believe it's going to help us achieve what our national dream is, which is having a homeland again that is self-administered, that is administered by us, welcoming all minorities of Iraq and whomever wants to live there and practice freely their faith and their religion equally. So from a military standpoint, I think that will enable, or that's going to give a reason why these minorities, these Assyrian Christians, have the right to protect themselves because this has been inflicted on them. So there are several reasons. But from an idealistic perspective as well, I believe personally that that's going to just give us more courage to fight this fight even harder. It's going to that our cries are being finally heard. So those are just some things that immediately come to my mind as to why this is important to be declared a genocide. Because you know what? Let me talk about something. The Armenian and the Assyrian genocide and the Greek genocide is still not recognized for political reasons. When Darfur was happening, America, the beacon of light, sat on the sidelines, as well as the world. They didn't do anything while millions were massacred. Let's talk about the Jewish Holocaust. The whole game changed for the Jewish people, I believe, when the massacre, the Holocaust was declared a genocide. And that's what we need as well. This is our Holocaust, and it must be recognized as such.
I agree. And I just want to add that in the press release, Robert, I just want to quote Robert, regarding this subject, he said, "The most important thing is to prompt action by these governments to abide by their duty under this treaty." So basically, it prompts the whole world to actually act, to save and secure the right of return and to rebuild for the affected communities. Eric, if you could talk a little bit about your approach, the whole process of collecting all this tedious data that was necessary to make your case. If you can talk a little bit about that, how you went about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we were first asked to do this, we realized that as lawyers, primarily in Texas, one of our partners, Matthew Dowd, is in Washington, D.C. The rest of the team that worked on this is all in Texas, most of us in Houston. One partner is in Austin, Texas. We realized that we didn't have the resources that Assyrian Aid Society has and Philos Project and others to actually go to Iraq and talk to people and collect testimony. But that we could look at information that was publicly available and that was available in scholarly resources. And one of the key questions that emerged very quickly was that this question of whether or not ISIS was allowing Assyrian Christians to pay the jizya, classical Islamic tax, whether that meant that in fact there was no genocide because there was no intent. And so we wanted to challenge this question about whether or not the jizya, as ISIS states it, might be a pretext. A pretext is basically a statement that's made to obscure the actual reality. Mm-hmm. And we realized that from where we were sitting in Texas, that was something that we could argue. We weren't able to go make sort of the affirmative case about what's happening because we're not in Iraq, but we could make an argument about, based on the publicly available information, is this pretextual? And so it began a very in-depth period of research for us. I want to make sure to acknowledge our whole team. In particular, I want to acknowledge Ryan McBrearty, and Matthew Dowd. Ryan is a junior associate at Andrews Kurth in Houston. He is a very, very committed to his faith and really just committed himself wholeheartedly to this project, put in an immense amount of time researching scholarly sources on jizya and dhimmi and historical applications of Islam. Matthew Dowd, meanwhile, had done some work, particularly in appellate work in the U.S., but had at least touched on some international issues. He did a lot of research into various tribunals. There have been, because of these genocides that have taken place over the years, most recently in Bosnia and Rwanda, there have been special tribunals that the United Nations has set up to prosecute the perpetrators. And from those tribunals, we now have some published decisions by these international tribunals that helps lay out the law of genocide. And so Matthew Dowd did a lot of research on that. My primary role when it came to research was to research historical genocides, which we end the letter with, and then to fill in sort of other scholarly holes, and then do a fair amount of the drafting. But then all of us ended up drafting, everyone drafted significant portions of the letter. The other people that were involved as well were Patrick Yarborough, Jared Weir, and Austin Priddy, all of whom put in an enormous number of hours in order to bring together this 37-page document. And what we would find is that, and as you saw, Mona and Juliana, as we went through drafts, we would discover that we needed more analysis on certain issues. And so to talk about what ISIS is doing now, we would go to news sources and did our best to look at the most reputable news sources possible. What I mean by that is we would rely on, say, The Guardian or The Economist or CNN, if that were possible, because oftentimes the same event would be reported by several different media sources, and we didn't want anyone to question our sources. We wanted everyone to be able to say, okay, you have gone to neutral people who neutrally have reported that this is what's happening.
Right.
And that was the approach we took. With scholarly research, for example, most of our citations are to the Oxford and Princeton encyclopedias of Islam and of Islamic thought. Once again, very reputable scholarly source. The idea being that we want to just lay out information here that really no one, we hope at least, should question.
Right.
Our goal was to write a neutral, fair letter that got to the issues, but that ultimately was objective.
And what Eric was talking about is the different numerations of drafts that we had done. I mean, I can just tell you that all of us were on the phone with marathon conference calls all weekend long, and we went through many drafts and a lot of sleepless nights away from our families to be able to accomplish this. So and when you mentioned that this is a letter that's 37 pages long, and the reason is because the citations are very meticulously documented. So half of the letter is really the citations, which are necessary for backup. So yeah, thank you for that. And again, I just want to encourage everybody to go to any of the sites I mentioned for the letter. It's on Facebook. It's been posted everywhere. Juliana, I think it's important for us to share why it's important that we all collaborate as Assyrian organizations as well as American organizations to bring awareness to these atrocities and what's happening to the Assyrian Christians of Iraq and Syria. Can you talk a little bit about that, our collaborations together?
Yes, absolutely. Many of you have already seen Man Beyond His Time, a docudrama about Freydun Aturaya. The last screening happened here in Chicago, and I have to tell you, there were so many young people who approached me and said, "This is what we needed. We needed to see this movie because it reminds us what we're fighting for." And they told me, we need unity. We need to bring our organizations together on a united front with a united voice to approach world powers. And Mona, based on what, to answer your question, the more organizations collaborate and the more, as many organizations on a united front would go to Washington, D.C. or European Parliament as a united force, I think we can make a strong impact. خاقيسا بنوشو رابا راحت كمسي شنطيلة إنا إذن رابا قيسي عابي مويدالة رابا راحت لمسخ فيشخ شميته. Sorry, I was just talking about a piece of wood or a small stick can be broken very easily, Eric. But if there was a bunch of it, it's going to be much harder to break that. So it is critical. So on this project, as Beatles Project spearheaded this, U.S. Syrian Aid Society, Iraqi Christian Relief Council, and American Mesopotamian organization came all together. And I think this is going to be heard much louder, if you will, because there were quite a few organizations that came together to do this. And I have to tell you, Mona, you were saying, Eric was talking about the letter, and I was on my way to Washington, D.C. There were two people sitting next to me, and I was rereading this document. And I encourage, بطلابا منوخن ملتي قد قريتن لها كتابة أبن ياريخي إنا همنيتن الله من ديانة إحنا قريلا تاما وصيلا قد أنجبان هدرونا قديان قد من ديانة خاطئ أنا جاني لبلي جودين براقي جودين كتوياتي بس مالوخن قريمون ين print بودون لسبب ياريخي print بودون. So on the way to Washington, this guy sitting next to me, he looked, and I didn't realize he was reading over my shoulder. And he said, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you. I have to tell you, my grandparents came from Lebanon, and they were Catholic Maronites. They came earlier in the 20th century, and I'm reading this. Then we started talking about what's happened to the Assyrian community, and the lady to my left, who is an influential evangelical Christian, now she wants to help the Assyrians in the Middle East because of this letter, and they both want to receive this letter and they want to spread it. So it's a very educational document. And the key is not to keep it to ourselves. The key is to spread it far and wide, and we must spread it to people of influence especially. إن بسمع لكم كتابة إذا بقرايتون برخد فيسبوك برخد تويتر لا شوقيتون نكزيانوخون شدرون لقا كل خا فرسوبة بدايتون جو إيكت إينا جدوني سبب رابا قيتلا كل كتابة قاريلة إلى برست ديان قد أنا نخراية أمريكاية ويوروبناي بتاينا بكلاينا أمان عن قيتلا قد هيرتا قبل أخلا منه وخبرة بهالسخلة أنا لا حقويات قد بيش نقوم مع الملة ديان.
Basim Tadus. Eric, I just want to say, just adding to that, what does it mean to you to be part of this cause? And obviously, from what Juliana said, your contribution is tremendous, and we are very appreciative for all the work that you, Ryan, Matthew, everybody in your organization has been doing. And I know it's taken a lot of time from your personal time from family to do this. So what does it mean to you to be working with us?
It's difficult to say how grateful I am to have this opportunity. When I've had the thought a lot of late that I've always wondered what would happen if something terrible were happening and I were asked to do something about it. Would I stand up and do something? And that's one reason that when I first got the email from Robert Nicholson about this project, I said, I think we can do that. Now, it's not that it takes a lot of bravery or anything like that from Houston, Texas to write a letter, but it really, I really think it's important. I've read too much about genocides, I guess. I was a history major and took classes on international human rights. I'll never forget reading Philip Garavich's book on the Rwandan genocide. It's a famous book. We regret to inform you, but tomorrow we will be killed along with our families. And, it's the kind of book that you read and you want to just throw something against the wall because nothing was done and all of these horrible things happened. And to now find, and here I speak personally, but I think the other people on our team would share the same sentiment, to now find ourselves in a position where we could at least do something. Whether our letter will ultimately convince Secretary Kerry or not, I'm optimistic that he has an open mind to this, and I think that we've made good arguments, and I think that especially if this gets a lot of attention, if people write about it, and I think, as Juliana was saying, tweet about it or put it on Facebook or what have you, you never know what might happen. And I said to my wife earlier today, I said, there's no doubt in my mind that this is what's happening today in Iraq is going to be in the history books. The big question is whether this has a different ending than other things that we've seen happen in the past. And I'm really happy is a strong word, because just working on this makes one melancholy. I mean, as you know all too well, it's sad, it's terrible. But I'm at least happy that I'll be able to say that when the time came, we did what we could.
Right.
We didn't just sit idly by.
Right.
And that's a lot to me, to know that. Right. And I just hope that we get a good result next week, so that not only did we not sit idly by, but we ended up doing something tangible that really made a difference.
I agree. Yeah. I think if our viewers were to read this letter, as Juliana was encouraging, you would agree with what Eric just said, that it is a great attempt to convince the State Department that this, in fact, is genocide, and there is really no reason to hold back on declaring that. Juliana, we talked about that there is a very important press conference that will take place tomorrow morning, and that's why you're in D.C. just for the one night. And I know that you're not really able to share everything, about the press conference tonight. It hasn't happened yet. But if you can just give us a little bit, just a hint of what you intend to relay in that press conference as a representative of our UMTA.
First of all, it's an honor for me to have been chosen to deliver this strong message from UMTA from Atra and in the diaspora. This is going to take place at 10 a.m. at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. There are going to be about 7 to 8 panelists from clergy to non-Assyrian individuals who want to encourage the State Department and Secretary Kerry to really recognize this as a genocide. It's going to be recorded. There will be a lot of media there. And my responsibility is to be the voice for the Assyrians. And I will be talking about specific examples of what I saw on the ground. And I will be delivering a message, God willing, to Secretary Kerry from Umtan, Hadamet Umtan, whom I met on the ground in Iraq. I was in Iraq 2 weeks ago. I had the privilege of going home 2 weeks ago for the first time. And as an Assyrian from Iran, going to my ancestral homeland is life-changing for me. So I hope that I will do this cause justice tomorrow, and I will make all of you proud. And God willing, on March 17th, when the administration will rule on this issue, we will be the victors on this issue.
Great. And since you did mention, and we did post, as you were talking, photos of you walking around in Nuhadra, and in Erbil, probably in some of the photos. And I know you're going to have an interview on A&B tomorrow night regarding your trip, but if you can give us a little bit of information about what you found in Atra, or I know you visited with our sister organization, Assyrian Aid Society of Iraq, and the Caravan Project. So just a little bit on that. I don't want to take from tomorrow's show, that you're going to have tomorrow night.
Sure, of course. If I may, Eric, I'm going to speak in Assyrian a little bit here. Thanks. قخت أختمري خدقيقة مقامالية قجا قامتا أنا أخا أطورت إيران خشلي أطرد أبهاتن أو أطرد أبهاتي و إذا طيلي على الأربل كيبلي أرنشي قالي سبب ملكبات وخامات وجبنقي أرخخي شنال دي أرى ودم الدين دمن سبيا بيشلت بيخال دي أرى قدشتا سو خشت تاما قدي شخلبتو لخيوتي قحماشا مونا و أمتي مغبتا تنينوخن ريخت أطرا ضامت أطرا سبيوتد ناشت أطرا لن إلى برتلا يقوم قد روحي وهرلن صايا منشيا إن هرلن صايا من قدرتن الله ترد أمريكا أبن أترد أمريكا إلى بيتي إنا عادية بضاين أترد أبهاتن ينمو من مجد متخرخ مونا تفقلن برابا برسوبة تفقلن بسيت دودرانا تاماغت كما شولا شابيرة بعدنا ملتي مقبتا خزيتون كما قشية في الخانة تاما احنا شدرخ وخجة أدرانا تاما هويران قبالت دها أدرانا اي caravan projects قد مارتون فيلوس project ان ناشد قد كفل خنقاته sponsor فيدي وخكمة caravans خا عمره قد قشته مجيو نورث كارولاينا Discovery Church إيفانجيلاينا أني اشتادان caravans مترسلون واخنا متفد أدرانا مشي خايد عراق زهراها شلا فيدلان so راب يعني نبيش مطلة رابز كل أخو مضايتون أنا قد أخقله في الخانة من سمنياش نبهلجي خيوتي دبختون إنا وخيتن بدن الشكل وخيتن بدن الفيديوز ودردت ملتي إنا زيتد دردت ملتن وأين يعني برشتلا قاعدة باين بربولن بيوخن ملتي بربولن بيوخن لا شقيتون لا كاليتون من خيارتا سبب ملتن مزبقتا أينو الله نيدا وإن أبيلوخن برسات خوشون زيمون لبأين جانوخن همزمون من دن برسوفه شميمون درده يال السورة قد خبرات تفقلي بيومونا قد آيسس إذن يعني شيتوفا لي مغماري آيسس شغلتو وأوروبيتو والجويدة ويبرات خنادي للم صايا همزمة بابو بيش القطيلة أني إنا أخوناتن ختماتن وبخشابن باليتني لا أخ آتوراي أخدامت خابغرا آتوريت أخاين ما آتوريتا لا يرق من شيخ يرق من يدي دوقخ لمرمخلو مكليخ لملقلي ورخات بريش ورخات مقريتا قاتي خش للمدرسة قد سيت ودرانا هو يرتيلا يعني ملتي مغبتة إذن أني على السورة بقرايبة من كتابي بليشان الديان physics chemistry biology وسيت أدرانا هو يرتلا غدين المدرسة وأنا رابيات قد لنا بيش بورية بيرخي حالا بالخاننا أنا لن بضاح جدوك الدنيا أتخى self sacrifice يندوخت تجانا أنا لن بضاح إيكي بخزنة يعني همون قد براشتون لأن إحساسات دانت لي يعني feelings دانت لي باين مينا غاتوخون مرشان قيرت ملت تنايوتا يقول ببات كلمتن Eric, I was just talking about my experience in the homeland. And by the way, the trip was sponsored by the Philos Project. Robert Nicholson, قد إلخا أمريكا ليلة لازم أبحال خديا كما كازس خينتن كما شولان خينتن إن أول مهوبلة قد زدت قن شاقله. I was just talking about who Robert Nicholson is and what he's doing, but I was just basically talking about the nationalism that I felt on the ground in Iraq and the different pain that I've witnessed in these people's faces and the ailing bodies and how we as one Assyrian family in the diaspora, we cannot forget about our brothers and sisters in Iraq and also in Syria. And the fact that, and Eric, I have to tell you, the Assyrian schools that the Assyrian Aid Society have supported, all these books that have been published and have been translated, these are biology, chemistry, physics. They're all in the Assyrian language. And teachers who haven't been paid for 6 months, but they continue to teach these kids. It's just unbelievable what the Assyrian Aid Society does on the ground.
Well, thank you, Juliana. I'm sure you will talk in more depth on the A and B SAT program tomorrow night from Chicago, and I look forward to that. I totally agree with you. I mean, I went twice, and my last time I went to Atra was a year ago, and I always feel like I'm coming home when I visit, even though it's a short time, and I feel like I've discovered a whole family, a whole country full of family, and it's an amazing feeling. It's really hard to describe other than asking people to go there themselves and experience it. So at this point, I just want to ask Eric and Juliana if you have any more to add. If I forgot anything that you want to make sure that our viewers should hear, please go ahead.
I do want to also make sure I mention Scott Brister and Richard Deutsch, who are two partners of Andrews Kurth, who also help with our letter. I talked about sort of the associates who put in a lot of time on this, but it wouldn't be possible without the support of the partners as well. Matthew Dowd especially, but also Scott Brister and Richard Deutsch. And once again, just to say what an honor it is to be on TV with you tonight. And I really just can't say what an honor it is, and how much I'm going to be praying and just hoping for the very best for everyone in Iraq and Syria right now and what they are facing. So thank you for including me.
Thank you. And Juliana, do you want to add anything else, or did we cover?
Absolutely. The fact that we have non-Assyrian partners, such as you, Eric, and Andrews Kurth, and the Philos Project, it's immensely important for us to have friends like you to help us push this agenda forward. Our rights have been violated for many centuries, and we're very happy to have non-Assyrians with us. And it's an honor to be a part of this. It's an honor for us that Philos Project initiated this and contacted you, and we've discovered a new family in you, Eric, and Assyrian Aid Society and American Mesopotamian organization. It's an honor for me as ICRC to partner with you as well.
That's right. Thank you, Juliana. And I'd like to thank A&B SAT for allowing us this time and to share this significant issue. And of course, thank you to Eric and everybody in your firm, to Juliana, to Robert, who couldn't be with us, and to David Lazar from AMO, to also who couldn't be with us tonight either. And I know everybody has busy schedules, and it's very appreciated. I also want to remind the viewers to tune in to Juliana's interview tomorrow on A&B SAT. It's going to be tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Pacific, 9 Central. And Juliana will be able to discuss not only the details of her trip, but the details of the press conference that she will have had earlier that day. I just want
to pray for me.
I'm sorry?
Please pray for me for this event tomorrow morning.
That's right. But I also want to remind everybody that just to leave you with the thought that if you think when there's campaigns asking for your support, your calling your elected officials, that your one call or your one email or signature doesn't mean anything, that's not true. Because I know for a fact when we've talked to elected officials that when it's a small number actually, when at least 40 inquiries or signatures or emails or phone calls come in, it gets their attention. And that's really not that many. So it does make a difference when you do support some of these campaigns that you see, the call for action campaigns for your signatures or to call your elected officials. So with that, I just want to say, please hold us in your thoughts and prayers that all this work culminates to the ultimate decision of declaring genocide for Assyrian Christians in Iraq and Syria. And thank you for viewing into our special segment. And don't forget our weekly scheduled program of Assyrian Aid Society of America, which is normally on A and B Sat on Monday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific time. Again, thank you and have a good night. Upushim Shana.